10 things they feel when you simply disappear. When someone disappears from your life without any explanation or warning, it can have a profound emotional impact on them. Whether it's a friend, romantic partner, or close acquaintance, the sudden absence can leave the other person grappling with a complex mix of emotions. The feeling of being ignored, abandoned, or replaced is often unsettling and disorienting, and it can be difficult to process the absence without closure. In this video, we'll explore the 10 key emotions and psychological effects someone may experience when you simply disappear. From the initial shock and confusion to eventual healing and growth, the absence of communication can create a roller coaster of feelings. Understanding these emotional responses not only helps explain why someone might react the way they do, but also sheds light on the importance of communication and closure in any relationship. While everyone processes emotions differently, these are common feelings that most people experience when left in the dark without any explanation. Chapter 1. Shock and Confusion. When someone disappears without warning, the initial reaction is often shock. The suddenness of the event catches the other person off guard, leaving them in disbelief. They may replay recent conversations and interactions, trying to pinpoint any signs or clues that might explain the abrupt departure. The unexpected nature of the disappearance disrupts their sense of normalcy and leaves them grasping for understanding. Confusion quickly follows the shock as they struggle to make sense of what happened. Questions flood their mind. Did I do something wrong? Was there a problem I didn't notice? This uncertainty can be deeply unsettling, as humans naturally seek closure and understanding. The lack of answers can create an internal conflict, as they oscillate between self-blame and blaming the other person. The confusion is often compounded by the absence of communication. Without a clear explanation, they are left to fill in the blanks on their own. This can lead to assumptions and misinterpretations, which may not align with the reality of the situation. The lack of clarity can create a mental fog, making it difficult for them to move forward or process their emotions effectively. In some cases, the shock and confusion can linger for an extended period, especially if the relationship was significant or emotionally intense. The abrupt disappearance leaves unresolved feelings, making it hard for them to find closure. This emotional limbo can prevent them from fully healing, as they remain stuck in a cycle of questioning and uncertainty. Chapter 3. Self-doubt. The sudden disappearance often triggers a wave of self-doubt. Without any explanation, the other person is left to wonder if they were the cause of the abrupt ending. They may start to question their own actions, words, or even their worth, replaying past interactions in search of something they could have done wrong. This constant overthinking can lead to a spiral of negative self-assessment, where they begin to believe that they are fundamentally flawed or unworthy of love and connection. This self-doubt doesn't just affect their perception of the past relationship, it can also seep into other areas of their life. They might start to doubt their ability to form meaningful connections or fear that they'll be abandoned again in future relationships. This lingering insecurity can create a lasting impact, making them hesitant to fully trust or open up to others as they continue to question their own value and the authenticity of others' intentions. Chapter 4. Anger. As the initial shock and confusion subside, anger often begins to surface. The person who was left behind may feel a deep sense of betrayal, especially if the relationship was meaningful to them. They might feel that they deserved better treatment and that disappearing without any explanation was a cowardly or disrespectful act. This anger can be directed both at the person who disappeared and at themselves for trusting someone who ultimately hurt them. The anger also stems from the lack of closure. Being left without answers can feel incredibly unfair, leaving them with unresolved emotions and unanswered questions. This frustration can manifest in thoughts like, "How could they do this to me?" or "I didn't deserve to be treated this way." The absence of a proper goodbye or explanation makes it difficult for them to process their feelings, and the anger becomes a way to cope with the pain and confusion. Over time, this anger can either dissipate or fester, depending on how the person handles it. If they are unable to find closure or forgiveness, the anger may turn into bitterness or resentment, affecting their outlook on future relationships. On the other hand, if they are able to channel their anger into self-reflection and growth, it can eventually lead to a sense of empowerment and resilience, helping them move forward with a clearer understanding of their own needs and boundaries. Chapter 5. Sadness and Loneliness. After the initial waves of shock, confusion, and anger, sadness often sets in. The realization that the person who disappeared is truly gone can lead to a deep sense of loss. This sadness is not just about missing the individual, but also about mourning the future that was imagined with them. The abrupt end leaves a void, and the sadness stems from the unfulfilled potential and the memories that now feel tainted by the unexpected departure. Loneliness can amplify this sadness, especially if the person had grown emotionally attached or relied on the relationship for companionship and support. The sudden disappearance leaves them feeling isolated, as they no longer have the presence or connection they once cherished. This loneliness can be overwhelming, making them feel as though they are navigating their emotions without the support they previously leaned on. In some cases, the sadness and loneliness can lead to feelings of depression. The abrupt nature of the departure may cause them to withdraw from others, fearing further abandonment or rejection. This emotional withdrawal can create a cycle where their loneliness deepens, making it harder for them to reach out for support or engage in activities that could help alleviate their sadness. Overcoming this phase requires time, self-compassion, and often the support of friends, family, or professional help to rebuild their sense of connection and joy. Chapter 6. Obsession over closure. When someone disappears without explanation, the lack of closure can create an obsessive need for answers. The person left behind may become fixated on understanding why it happened, replaying every moment in their mind to uncover any signs they missed. They may obsess over small details from past conversations or interactions, attempting to piece together a narrative that explains the sudden departure. This obsessive thinking can become all-consuming, preventing them from moving forward or finding peace. The desire for closure stems from the need to make sense of what feels like an unfinished story. Without an explanation, the person feels like they're left in limbo, unable to fully process their emotions or heal. This longing for clarity often leads to speculation, as they fill in the gaps with their own assumptions. Unfortunately, this self-created narrative may not align with the reality of the situation, and it can lead to more confusion and frustration rather than resolution. The obsession with closure can also prevent emotional growth. By continuously focusing on the past and seeking answers from the person who disappeared, they might delay the healing process. It can make it difficult to move on and embrace new experiences or relationships. Over time, the person may realize that closure might never come, and that true healing often requires accepting uncertainty and learning to let go of what's beyond their control. Chapter 7. Relief or Freedom. Mixed emotions. In some cases, after the initial shock and confusion, there can be a surprising sense of relief or freedom. For individuals who were involved in a relationship or connection that was unhealthy, draining, or emotionally toxic, the disappearance can feel like a release. The absence of the other person may relieve them from the stress, anxiety, or emotional turmoil they were experiencing. Instead of feeling sadness, they might find that they are able to breathe again, free from the weight of a challenging or unbalanced relationship. This relief can be especially potent if the person had been struggling with feelings of being misunderstood or undervalued. The disappearance might allow them to step back and rediscover a sense of self they had lost in the dynamics of the relationship. They may begin to realize that the relationship was not providing the emotional fulfillment or support they truly needed, and their life might begin to feel lighter without the constant emotional ups and downs. However, this feeling of freedom can be mixed with guilt. The person may question if they should feel relieved, especially if they had cared deeply about the other person. There may be moments of internal conflict as they wonder if they should have tried harder to salvage the connection or if they should feel bad about their own sense of relief. This mix of emotions can be confusing and might require time to fully process, but ultimately, they may come to accept that their sense of freedom is valid and necessary for their well-being. Chapter 8. Reflection and Growth. After the initial emotional turmoil of a sudden disappearance, the person left behind often enters a period of reflection. They begin to look back at the relationship and the events leading up to the disappearance, evaluating what went right and what went wrong. This introspection can be painful, but it offers an opportunity to gain clarity about themselves and their needs. By examining the past, they can identify patterns in their behavior or in the relationships they form, which can help them understand how to approach future connections in a healthier, more informed way. As part of this reflection, they may also come to terms with their role in the relationship's dynamics. It can be difficult, but acknowledging both their strengths and their flaws provides valuable insights that can aid in personal growth. This process of self-awareness helps them realize what they truly want in relationships and what boundaries they need to establish moving forward. Instead of blaming themselves or others entirely, they start to see the experience as a lesson that will contribute to their emotional maturity. Ultimately, this reflection and growth allow them to emerge stronger and more resilient. They may develop a clearer sense of self and an improved understanding of how to navigate relationships in the future. While the pain of the disappearance may never fully disappear, the lessons learned during this period of growth can empower them to make wiser choices, build healthier connections, and approach new relationships with greater confidence and emotional intelligence. Chapter 9. Moving on. Eventually, as time passes and the emotional intensity begins to subside, the person who was left behind starts to move on. The pain of the disappearance, while still lingering in some form, becomes more manageable. They begin to shift their focus away from the past and toward their own healing. This phase is marked by a gradual acceptance of the situation, where they start to recognize that life must continue and they deserve to move forward, regardless of the unanswered questions or unresolved feelings. As they move on, they may invest more time and energy in themselves, rediscovering hobbies, interests, or passions they may have neglected during the relationship. They might deepen their friendships, seek new connections, or focus on personal goals that promote growth and fulfillment. The process of moving on is often empowering, as it allows them to regain their independence and re-establish their sense of identity outside of the relationship. This reintegration of self helps to rebuild their confidence and opens up new opportunities for emotional healing and growth. While the memory of the person who disappeared may never fully fade, moving on allows them to find peace with the situation. They learn that not all relationships are meant to last, and that closure doesn't always come from the other person. Instead, they realize that closure is something they can create for themselves by choosing to let go of what no longer serves them. As they embrace the future, they are better equipped to form healthier relationships and approach life with a renewed sense of optimism, knowing they are capable of healing and growing from the experience. Chapter 10. Trust issues in future relationships. The emotional scars left by someone's disappearance often extend into future relationships, leaving the person who was left behind with trust issues. The sudden, unexplained absence can create a lingering fear of abandonment, making it difficult for them to fully open up to new people. They might constantly question the intentions of others, wondering if they will disappear just like the person before. This doubt can make them overly cautious or guarded, preventing them from forming genuine emotional connections. As they engage in new relationships, they may become hypervigilant, looking for signs that the person might pull away or vanish without warning. They could second-guess every move, wondering if something they say or do might trigger the same outcome. This wariness can strain relationships, as the other person might feel the weight of suspicion or insecurity, even if they have no intention of disappearing. The person may also struggle with letting go of past betrayals, making it harder to trust that new people won't hurt them in the same way. Over time, however, these trust issues can be worked through with patience and self-awareness. Healing from the hurt caused by a sudden disappearance requires addressing the underlying fears and insecurities that arise from the experience. By building self-confidence, setting healthy boundaries, and recognizing that not everyone will repeat the same actions, they can gradually learn to trust again. This process may take time, but with support and self-compassion, they can overcome the barriers of mistrust and approach future relationships with a renewed sense of openness and emotional security. In conclusion, when you disappear without a word, the emotional impact on the person left behind can be profound and complex. From feelings of shock, confusion, and rejection to the eventual process of moving on and reflecting on their growth, the emotional journey is not easy. While they may initially struggle with sadness, anger, and self-doubt, over time they can learn valuable lessons and grow stronger from the experience. However, the absence of closure can leave lasting effects, particularly in the form of trust issues and emotional scars that may affect future relationships. It's important to recognize that clear communication and respectful closure are key in helping others navigate these challenging emotions. By offering clarity, even if it's difficult, you help provide the emotional space needed for healing and growth, preventing confusion and unnecessary pain in the process. Ultimately, understanding these feelings emphasizes the importance of kindness, honesty, and emotional responsibility in all forms of connection.